Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Yeah, as the title suggests, today I'm going to be talking to you guys about all the random non-fiction that is on my TBR shelves. That there's a 100% probability that I'm not going to read anytime soon. I will read them, I'm not saying I'm never going to read these, but I'm not going to get through them anytime soon. But you know what, guys, it is Non-Fiction November. So I thought we'd celebrate a little bit with at least showing you what my taste in non-fiction runs to. I don't read a lot of non-fiction. I read maybe 1 or 2 books a year, if that. I'm fairly certain last year I read no non-fiction. So yeah, I've got 12 books I think to chat about. So shall we just dive in and see what I like learning about? Yeah? Okay, so the first one is one I am reading this month. I've been dipping in and out of it a little bit, so I'm only like 30-40 pages into it. But that is Me vs. Brain by Hayley Morris. Hayley Morris is a TikToker. She does a lot of sort of like mental health and female body personified anatomy scripts, skits. She started during TikTok, I think. She is the one where, you know, like period has a personality, your brain has a personality and things. I found her via her TikToks, well, her YouTube shorts, because I don't have TikTok. I refuse to install it. I found her really funny. So when I saw that she was doing the book, I was like, I might give it a shot. Yeah, this is, how do I describe this? This is basically just like her brain dumping. It's lots and lots of shorter chapters, so you can literally go back and forth. But I'm reading it in order because that's how my brain works. But you could literally dip in and out of whatever chapter you want. The first, was it one of the first chapters? It's talking about intrusive thoughts and how we all have them. There's been a chapter on how our clothes, especially like as we're growing up, reflect our personality or what we want our personality to be. And yeah, this is basically that book for anyone who feels kind of weird or anyone who is a bit of a weirdo, and it's like, you know what? We're all just that little bit weird, and it's been nice reading it when you sort of like, she's basically putting on paper all of these thoughts that, you know, we all kind of have these thoughts and we're all just that wee bit weird, but hey, someone's actually saying it out loud, which is nice, and it just makes you feel a little less alone and weird in the world. I don't know, it's the kind of book that I really wish I had like maybe 10-15 years ago when I was sort of like at a more impressionable, a lot less secure in myself. Right now I'm reading it going, yeah, me too. But, and you know, like I'm enjoying like the sense of, you know, it's nice to see someone else put these things down on paper. But if I'd had this like 10-15 years ago, it would have been nice to have that sort of like, I'm not broken, I'm not weird. Well, I am weird, but it's fine because everybody's weird, or there's more weird people out there, you know? So yeah. It's really quick, it's really easy to read, the writing is really accessible, which is making it really good, and the humour you get in her shorts is definitely coming across as well. So like I say, I'm only like 30-40 pages into it, but so far I recommend it. But this is pretty much, bar one other, is pretty much the only one I can actually comment on in terms of like I've actually started it. I do have this habit of like maybe reading the first chapter or introduction to a non-fiction and then I put it down. Just so I can get a feel for it and for what the writing style is like, so that I know what I want to pick up when I'm in the mood for non-fiction. I don't know if that made any sense whatsoever. But yeah, moving rapidly on. We're going to try not make this take too long, but it's me, so, you know. My channel's called Rambles for a reason. We know this. But yeah, anyway, the first one, it is Gossip from the Forest, the tangled roots of our forests and fairy tales. I have read the first sort of like 5-10 pages or so of this one. And this is basically looking at how our forests and how our landscapes have influenced our fairy tales. Basically the introduction goes into how our landscape have a really big impact on our fairy tales. So in Western fairy tales, children get lost a lot. People go missing a lot. Because it's really easy to lose sight of someone in a forest. It's really easy to get lost in a forest, especially if you're not familiar with the path, or if you stray, or it's really easy to get disorientated. And she makes a really interesting comparison compared with like 1001 Arabian Nights or Arabian Tales, but sort of like more Eastern fairy tales, and how in those tales it's very rare that someone gets lost or goes missing, because when you're in the desert and you can see for miles and miles and miles, it's really hard to lose track of someone because you scan the horizon and go, oh, there they are. So yeah, I'm really excited to see this one. I think it explores a lot of sort of like Britain's forests. So this one I actually do plan on pairing with a couple of fairy tale inspired fictions and doing sort of like a reading vlog about that. It will take me a long time to do that because we all know as soon as I put something on a TBR, I immediately go, nope, I don't want to read it. So I'm not forcing myself into this, and it'll probably be sort of like a read a little bit, vlog it, read something completely different. It won't be like reading them all together. But yeah, that's an idea I have inspired by this book and a couple of my most recent acquisitions, shall we say. Yeah. The next one, now this one I have read some. I'm on page 88, chapter 6. This one I started years ago. I started a good couple of years, 2-3 years ago. 2 years ago? 2-3 years? I started it during lockdown. I started it during whenever that was, so yeah. 3 years ago. If I were a smarter woman, I would just DNF this book. But I'm not smarter. I am masochistic, and apparently I hate myself. But there's also this huge part of me that's saying, no, I have got to continue reading this book. I don't care how uncomfortable this makes me, because my god, this book is making me really, really uncomfortable, but quite frankly, it should. I should not enjoy this book, and I'm not. This book has made me cry so many times, and not in the way I normally like crying. Because I love crying. I love books that make me cry, but not this one. This is a book I will never rate, because this is not something you can put a star rating to. And that is the boy who followed his father into Auschwitz. This is a true story. This is taken from the secret diaries kept by the father. And it's... you can't describe, you can't rate what I can tell. So the Daily Mail described it as shattering and astonishing. Extraordinary is the Observer. It's devastating. It is the hardest book I have ever tried to read. I don't know what possessed me to pick it up. I think it's not my normal, you'll see from the rest of the TBR, it's not the normal kind of non-fiction I go for. I don't know where my head was when I decided I wanted to pick this up. I'm glad I did. But yeah, I don't want to DNF this. I will finish this. I read maybe like a chapter or two a year at most, because it is so incredibly difficult to read. Like I say, I'm almost 90 pages into it. It starts in Vienna, and the family have been split up. The father was taken first and put into, oh gosh, where was he put into first? Buchenwald? Yeah, Buchenwald. and the atrocities that are already taking place very early in the war. Like we're not even like at the peak of the war, we're still very, very early in the war. And it is so hard to remind myself that everything happening in here was done by human beings. Because like, there's a huge part of your brain that wants to go, this was made up, like this has to be made up. It's like, no, this happened. When we're taught about it in school, so much of the atrocities are completely glossed over, to the point I think books like this are needed to remind us of just how horrific it was, and that we shouldn't be glossing over for the sake of someone's sensibilities and, oh dear lord, someone please think of the children. Like, I'm not saying a child should read this because that would be way too much, but I do think in the later years of school, these are books like these should be getting put on the curriculum to really drive in, like, this is not somewhere we ever want to get back to. And there are countries in the world, and there are places in the world right now which are basically, if not already, they're getting there. And it's just, like, I can't even, guys. So yeah, this is one that's on my TBR that will, I don't know, I might finish it by 2030. It will take a long time, but I will not give up on this book because these guys didn't give up, so I'm not going to give up on them. Okay, swiftly moving on. The next one is Famina, A New History of the Middle Ages through the women written out of it. And it's a really interesting one. This is not rewriting history from a women's POV, but it is more remembering the women that were deliberately scrubbed out. The author has gone digging and has found the books and has found the stories of these women, and it is not rewriting, it's not going, well, actually, at least I don't think so, it's not the impression I've gotten so far, but it's basically, it's like, look, these things happened, but yeah, sure, a man did this, but these women were also here. So yeah, there's that. I can't say too much more about the rest of them, I promise. This will start going a bit more rapid, mostly because I haven't read any of them, because, you know, there. Next up, we have Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake. Non-fiction, all about mushrooms and fungi. And it just looks fun, and it's got recommended quite strongly by the booksellers at Mr. B's. They have recommended me some of my favourite bits of non-fiction, so yeah, we're gonna go for it. Okay guys, you're gonna hear Maisie in the background scraping at her litter tray, but she just won't settle tonight, and she's back and forth, and I thought we were over it, and I thought it was safe to film, but apparently it's not. Yeah. Okay. Next up, we have got Salt on Your Tongue, Women and the Sea. And yeah, this is basically looking at a history of women and how the sea has influenced women and our connection to the sea. Yeah, that's all I got for you. My friend works for the publisher, and I don't know if she worked on the audio or if she just was sort of like speaking to the people working on the audio, but I'm really curious to... Apparently the audio was really interesting and like not straightforward to produce, so part of me thinks that I might end up spending an Audible credit on this one, just for, you know, out of curiosity's sake. Okay, next we have got The Wisdom of Wolves. How wolves can teach us to be more humans. Learning more about wolves because wolves are awesome. That's all we need to know. Yeah. Next we have The Wild Places by Robert Macfarlane. Robert Macfarlane, I've read one other book of his, and that is The Lost Words. which is a book of poems that... What's that poem style where every line starts with the letter of the word? So like if the word was wild, it would be a 4-line poem starting W-I-L-D. I can't remember the name of that. I can't remember what they're called, but he's basically produced a book of those about lost words, and it's beautifully, beautifully illustrated by Jackie Morris, who is one of my favourite artists. She did the illustrations for Robin Hobb, so of course I adore her. But she is just in herself is an incredible artist. I don't know if you can see it, but she did The Otters. That's just a jigsaw because I can't afford her prints. One day my dream is to have like an actual, like, proper Jackie Morris print and not just a jigsaw. But that jigsaw took me weeks. It will never come off the wall because it took me weeks. But yeah, anyway, after reading through that, it really inspired me to pick up something else by Robert Macfarlane. And so naturally I didn't read it after I picked it up. But The Wild Places is basically looking through Britain and going, is there any place left in Britain that is untouched by mankind, that we've just left alone to be itself? And it's exploring that. So that, and one day, I'm curious, I will get to it. In a similar vein, this was one of the last Mr. B's non-fiction books they gave me. This year I did tell them, please don't send me any non-fiction, because as you guys can tell, it's stacking up a little bit. And in this pile alone, I've got like 4 or 5 years worth of non-fiction reading for me at least. I don't need any more right now. It's like, just stick to the fiction for a while. So yeah, one of the last ones they gave me was Islands of Abandonment, Life in the Post-Human Landscape. And rather than looking at areas of Britain, or in this case the world, that have never been touched by mankind, this is looking and exploring areas that mankind took over and then, for whatever reason, abandoned. Sometimes by choice, sometimes by force, sometimes by man-made force, sometimes by natural force. One of the first chapters, I think possibly the very first chapter, I've not read it yet. As in, I've not read that first chapter yet, because we know at this point I've not read any of these books. It's looking at the Five Sisters, which is an old quarry that was then, like, piled up, whatever, in West Lothian. It has a particular interest because I've got a friend who lives within walking distance, so anytime I'm at hers, I see Five Sisters. I was staying at hers the last couple of weeks for like a few days each week, whilst I was down south for work. One day when I was driving back from the Glasgow office to my friends, it literally took me round Five Sisters. So, you know, point of interest. But this one is looking at areas all over the world. We look at the there's like areas of like no man's land. There's I can't remember what exactly it's called, but basically like that area around Chernobyl that has been completely abandoned because of Chernobyl. It's sort of like looking and exploring there. It's looking at like ghost towns and things like that, and how nature has started reclaiming them once we're gone. So that's really interesting. Again, in a similar vein, we have Wilding by Isabella Tree, which is the second best author name on this list after Marilyn Sheldrake. But this is looking at a more specific case study of rewilding, and looking at the tagline is literally the return of nature to a British farm. So looking at how we can be less industrialised and how we can let nature take its course and things. Could be interesting. Again, I think this was a Mr. B's book. Okay, next one. I think I got given this by someone. I think possibly one of my parents, maybe. Came from the works. It was only £3. Okay, I was a scientist. I still work in STEM. Important. It's an important distinction for me that I need to make. I do still work in STEM, but I'm not really a scientist anymore. I think I'm technically a civil engineer now, which is bizarre. But I've always been big into science. This TBR tells you that, right? Obviously, I'm more of a nature person. I'm a really personal nature person. But I know that my parents just kind of go, ooh, science, Amy. And I'm okay with that. But yeah, this is definitely one of those books where you can read a chapter, put it down, read another chapter later, read it in whatever order you want. It's not like a chronological coherent thing. It's not chronologically told. It's not like a cohesive story. The book is called This Book Will Blow Your Mind. And it's one of the New Scientist publications. And it's basically a whole bunch of really random questions followed by their answers. Things like, can you cure aging? Is part of the universe missing? I didn't know that was a question we needed to answer. We needed to ask, let alone answer. So yeah, this is a book that it's there for whenever I'm like, I just want to know something random. I just want to learn something really random. I have read books like this and I do really enjoy them. Actually, I've got a really fun book upstairs. It's a proper coffee table book, but it's, oh gosh, what is it called? I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's basically a book that is full of all the potential ways that humanity can be destroyed. And it's amazing. Like, one of the ways is like, what happens if the earth just stops spinning? And then they take like really stupid random questions like, what would happen if the earth stopped spinning? And then actually answer it seriously. And that's the sort of thing that this book does. So I get a lot of fun like that. And then the last one, and this is the one I'm probably, I want to say possibly most excited about after the wolf one. Because they're really, wolves are awesome, right, guys? But this is The Invention of Nature, The Adventures of Alexander von Humboldt, the Lost Hero of Science. And this is basically the biography of Alexander von Humboldt, who was a naturist. He was a big inspiration for Darwin. And yeah, we just don't learn very much about him. But he made massive contributions to the sort of like the science of nature, to that area of study. And yeah, but it's a biography of a person, and I love learning about specific people and what makes nature so personal. But there we have it. There. Didn't take too long. This is not an hour-long video. Excellent. Go me. I feel accomplished. But yes, anyway guys, that was my non-fiction TBR that I will get to at some point in the next however many years, because yes, I think because I work in like a lot of like brainy things, and like right now literally all my brain does is learn new things at work. When I'm reading, I am predominantly, almost purely, I'm reading for escapism. But it's always nice to know that, you know, if I do want to just learn something, I've got a selection of books in my field of interest that might interest me, that I can pick up. Yeah. Maybe one or two of these you haven't heard of, and you're now like, ooh, I would like to pick that up too. So yeah, maybe one or two of these have piqued your interest. Who knows? But anyway, we're going to end it there. And if I do ever read any of these, you guys will be some of the first to know. And in the meantime, I'll see you guys later. Bye.